attention. I mentioned this briefly either yesterday or the day before, but we have this epidemic of right-wing crazies killing people, and nobody's talking about it in those terms. You've got these so-called incels, involuntarily celibate young white men, who are involuntarily celibate because no woman will hop into bed with them. They're unable to find a woman who will have sex with them, and so they want to kill women. I realize this sounds stupid and simplistic, but I am not making this up. There is this community of people, they call themselves incels. They've got a message board going, and this from Luke Barnes over at thinkprogress.org. The headline, "Incels are wildly celebrating the Toronto van attack." The online community linked to, and the name of the guy who did the van attack, charged on Tuesday with 10 counts of first-degree murder, has been celebrating wildly in the wake of his alleged van attack in downtown Toronto. The group of misogynists who self-identify as involuntary celibates, or incels, have praised him, elevating him alongside the Santa Barbara shooter, and this is from 2 years ago, this guy, and the Las Vegas shooter, Stephen Paddock, two mass murderers who the community holds up as saints for killing, quote, normies, or normal people. They refer to sexually active men as Chad and sexually active women as Stacy. And a tweet from Archie Mann. Incels have a variety of means and tropes that they return to constantly, such as Stacy, attractive women who have sex, and Chad, attractive men who have sex. Non-incels are described as normies, and they're also derided. These are quotes from their message board. "This random dude killed more people than the Supreme Gentleman," and he names the Santa Barbara murderer, says user Crustaceos on the incel forum, incels.me. "I hope this guy wrote a manifesto because he could be our next new saint." Another user says, "One celebratory beer for every victim who turns out to be a young woman between 18 and 35. And then they go into this conversation about, to quote Luke Barnes, debating new ways to bring terror to normies, including pipe bombs, acid attack, and mass rape. Young white men who can't find a woman to have sex with. Meanwhile, this Waffle House shooter, you're not getting this from the media. And I guarantee you, if these were left-wing attacks, they'd be all over this kind of stuff. Weird stuff about the attackers. Or even Muslim attackers, they'd be all over it. But the guy who shot up the Waffle House, and had that guy not stopped him, the hero of this thing, had he not stopped the shooter, he would have killed a whole bunch of people. He had an AR-15. He called himself a sovereign citizen. This is, Richard Mack's group, and he when he was first arrested at the White House, when they stopped him, he said, "I'm a sovereign citizen and I've got business with Donald Trump." He's a Trump supporter and a so-called sovereign citizen. These are people who think that the government of the United States is illegitimate, and that they are the only real citizens, and they're claiming this. And another piece, this by Olivia Messer over at the Daily Beast. Accused Toronto killer praised woman-hating mass murderer moments before attack. The man suspected of mowing down pedestrians expressed his support, excuse me, just moments before the attack for a mass murderer who became a hero of the fringe men's right movement. This is strange stuff. Do you know anybody like this? I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. Anyhow, back to your calls. Cha in Waluku, Hawaii. Hey, Cha, what's up?
Aloha, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm getting better day by day. What's on your mind?
That's good. I wanted to make a comment. You were talking about the Supreme Court and giving the rights to corporations. There's another insidious problem with that, is that it takes away the psyche or the soul from people and animals and plants. This is something that gets missed. They can treat that trucker who almost froze to death as just another part of the truck instead of a person with a soul. This gets missed. I was wondering if you ever came across this.
I completely agree. And in fact, John Marshall, the second justice at the U.S. Supreme Court, he was appointed by John Adams on his way out of office in December or January of 1799. John Marshall said, a corporation is a soulless entity.
Beautiful.
I mean, he just laid it right out, right?
Wow.
That quote should have stood for the ages. As much as I disagree with John Marshall on things like Marbury versus Madison, and he was Jefferson's enemy. He was his second or third cousin, and they just did not like each other, which is why John Adams put him on the court. But he nailed it. And that was the prevailing sentiment back then, was corporations are not people, and we shouldn't pretend they are. Cha, thanks a lot for the call and for pointing that out. David in San Francisco. Hey, David, what's up?
Oh, hi, yeah, Tom. Yeah, it's a great topic. I'll tell you.
You're talking about the right-wing crazies?
Yeah, I've been calling you for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that, and I think I've mentioned before that I came from a family, one of the founding fathers, John Hart of New Jersey, was, one of the signers of the Declaration. So we were always raised to understand that there were saboteurs who were built into America. The old aristocrats made a point to have their league put in positions of power. And they've been sitting here for 240 years, and with this kind of snide ruination of America's ability to run our own lives, and the idea that there are kids now raised without any kind of civics, or without any appreciation for the idea, this kid to call himself a sovereign person, right?
Sovereign citizen. Yeah.
There were three catchphrases that made America strong, that brought us all together. It's united you stand, divided you fall. It's equal justice under the law, and it's taxation with representation. That we, the people, get to run our own lives, and we don't need some king or potentate or con artist to steal our tax money and drive us into the ground.
And all three of those have been usurped by corporate power.
Well, right, and so the whole idea is Citizens United is $1, one vote. Instead of one man, one vote, it's $1, one vote.
Right.
And millions are being spent on teaching kids that to not have an appreciation of being able to run our own lives, and so he even defies the very concept of a sovereign person.
I agree. David, thank you. And apparently the Republican in Arizona wouldn't have won without $1 million of outside right-wing money.
To the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9920.